Sotheby's International Realty in Falmouth. And Falmouth has been so busy with real estate.
Yes, it has. I've been so busy I haven't had time to color my hair.
Margaret, that's way too busy.
I know.
Still, it's a great time for buyers because interest rates remain at historic lows.
And it's a great time for sellers because the inventory is so low.
So that's increasing demand.
Yes, it is.
Don't you love Falmouth?
Remember, WC Communications is your printing team. We are calm and cool under pressure. You can call us at 508-563-7366 or toll free at 1-800-696-7303.
Good evening and welcome to the Board of Selectmen's meeting. Tonight is December the 10th. If you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get going this evening, I had kind of rushed Mr. Zavala last week, and he wanted to say a thank you to the community, so I'm going to give him approximately 2 minutes or less before, just to make a comment.
I'll take the or less.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me an opportunity to express the Chamber's sincere thank you to a number of prime contributors to the Holidays by the Sea weekend. A more exhaustive list will be published in the January edition of Coastlines. This year's week-long festivities began with caroling at Nomska Lighthouse, continued with a family pancake breakfast and raffle, the arrival of Seafaring Santa at Falmouth Harbor, the initial 5K Jingle Jog and Elf's Run, the holiday stroll, lighting of the Falmouth Village Green, and ended with the 49th Annual Falmouth Christmas Parade. We deeply appreciate the generosity of the Coast Guard Auxiliary, Morse Pond School, Flying Bridge Restaurant, New Balance, Falmouth Road Race, the Falmouth Village Association, the Board of Selectmen, Falmouth Department of Public Works, the Police and Fire Rescue Departments, Falmouth Mall Merchants, Town Crier David Vieira, student volunteers, Falmouth Community Television staff and volunteers, the many merchants who generously gave so much, and everyone affected by the street closing and disruptions caused by the event of the weekend. Please join us next year when the Chamber will host its semi-centennial celebration. I think I inadvertently said bicentennial earlier, and it's not the 200th, it is the 50th. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
First up this evening is, keeping with the board's tradition, is to try to do some workshops within this community. This workshop is to start a dialogue, start a conversation about how we can do things better, or how we're doing things quite as good as we possibly can already in this community. Tonight, we're going to be hearing from our acting chief of police, our fire chief, the county sheriff's department, as well as the county, in regard to 9/11 and the dispatch services. Before the Board of Selectmen and the community as we move forward, and this is not today, not tomorrow, but maybe in the near future, are some options to keep the process the way we currently operate it. Meaning the police department has one dispatch operation, the fire department has another. 9/11 services, I'm going to have them explain how those are handled currently as well. We have that option. We have the option of merging those two together as we move forward as a community. Again, this is going to be a community dialogue and a community decision as we move forward. The other option is to maybe work with the sheriff's department and the potential in the future to be able to handle some of our dispatch and 9/11 services, as well as the county has an option to be able to do the same. Again, we're not making any decisions here this evening, folks, and for those of you out there, the reason we do these is to start a dialogue, to start a process, that we can hear all the facts, continue to be able to gather them in an open public setting, and then let our professional staff handle them as we move forward. So first up this evening, if I can explain how we're going to handle this, we'll first hear from Chief Ed Dunn, Acting Chief Dunn from the Falmouth Police Department, then Chief Sullivan from the Fire Department. We'll both have an opportunity to explain how the services they provide to the community are currently handled. Sheriff James Cummings has joined us this evening, and he'll be able to tell this board and the folks in the community how he would propose to be able to help handle those services to the town of Falmouth in the future. And the county, Sean O'Brien, I believe, is here this evening, who will also be explaining how the county wants to have an impact on these same type of services as we move forward. So what we're going to do is provide each of them an opportunity to speak, and then we'll have some dialogue with the board and maybe some questions as well from the audience. First up this evening, Acting Chief Dunn.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Falmouth Police Department, as we've said, is we have our own dispatch center. It's 24/7, 365 days a year. It's manned with one police officer and one civilian dispatcher on each shift. We have a total of 3 full-time dispatchers, civilians, and 3 part-time civilian dispatchers. And like I say, on each shift there is one civilian with a police officer assigned to the desk. Our 911 calls are routed through the Sheriff's Department already, and this has been that way since we started receiving 911 calls back about 1992. The sheriff gets the original 911 call and then routes it either to the fire department or to the police department, and then we dispatch our crews into that particular incident. The police officers and dispatchers answer telephones, radios, and handle walk-in complaints. They monitor the closed-circuit monitors that we have for the prisoners, as well as the security for the building while they're there. They're also responsible for maintaining the computer aid dispatch system, which they enter all data from the phone call or from the cruiser calling in, whatever needs to be done gets put into the computer at that time. They monitor the AVL, or the automatic vehicle locator, for our cruisers. All our cruisers are equipped with locators, so at any time we have a big monitor up on the wall. Our dispatchers and police officers know where our cruisers are located. It's for the safety of the officers, and it's also for dispatching a vehicle closest to the incident that is going on. They're also enter and receive data from the National Crime Center, or NCIC, Law Enforcement Public Safety, or LEAPS, in the registry computer. They enter warrants or search for warrants, license information, border probation information, whatever criminal information or necessary information they need, the officer needs on a motor vehicle stop, or if they're investigating, one of the detectives are investigating. Dispatch, they dispatch personnel to needed calls for services such as motor vehicle accidents, B&Es, alarms, etc., or anything that happens there. They also physically, the police officer, even though we have a monitor for our prisoners, the police officer physically checks the prisoner, according to state law, every half hour and every 15 minutes if the person is suicidal. So he has to go downstairs into the cell block, leaving the civilian dispatcher on the desk to answer the phone call, deal with a walk-in, or deal with a radio from the police officer. The police officer will assist in the booking area as necessary too, every once in a while, by monitoring the monitor. There might be an incident downstairs where they need an extra body down there, and he'll run downstairs and assist them there. Again, we have a lot of walk-ins during the day, filing complaints, just looking for information, want to report different things. So they're constantly dealing with that. And that's, when I say during the day, seems to be our busiest time, but it's on the evening and on midnights. You'd be surprised the number of people that are coming into the police station. They have to deal with releasing prisoners when the bail commissioner comes in. If someone is arrested, they're entitled to bail, and they'll go down and get the prisoner, bring them upstairs so the bail commissioner can release them. So they're dealing with the people that are coming in to get their father, mother, or brother, whoever is under arrest. They also research information for the officers on the road. If they're at an accident or at a building break, they'll have to research information as to building owner, or the contact person, or the alarm company, and deal with that, or send wreckers. So they're quite busy in there. During emergencies or during large events, we increase the number of people in that room. We have 3 consoles, so we'll add a 3rd dispatcher. It could be a civilian, or it could be a police officer. So you could have upwards of 3 people in there answering the phones and dispatching calls. Falmouth, to date, has had, from 1/1/12 to 11/30/12, we've had 26,518 incidents. And that's all generated through our computer dispatch. Every time a call's entered, it creates a number. I think right now, I looked this afternoon before I left, I think we're around 27,000. And out of that, dispatch calls for services, that's 14,682. That's someone calling in or walking into the police station asking for service. And self-initiated is where the officer himself will do a motor vehicle stop or do a building check on his own, and that we have 11,836 to date. And that's pretty much how the police dispatch works for the Falmouth Police Department. Should you have any questions, I'll try to answer.
Great. We'll just go through the process.
I have a question.
Okay.
So in terms of the service that you provide, no matter who operated the 911, unlike what might happen in smaller towns, you would never consider that it would be a dark station at night?
We could never be a dark
Could
station.
never be a dark station?
Not with the number of people that come to our station. Like I say, even on the midnight shift, there are people in and out of there constantly. For us to be a dark station, that would never work.
Maybe you should explain to the
A
folks
dark-
out there what a dark station
Well, a
means.
dark station is like in the smaller communities where there's very little activity at night. They lock the station up. But some towns have somebody there, or they have a phone where someone can access someone from the station, but there's no coverage, police coverage at night in the station.
No, we'd have to have police coverage here.
Is that right? Is that a good description of a dark station? Thank you.
Okay, and I guess, well, I was going to ask this question later. Is there potential for the civilian dispatch? I realize we have union contracts and things of that nature, to merge those and yet still have the station manned by a police officer?
It would probably be up to some union negotiations.
Well, I realize all of that.
Yeah,
That's why we're not talking about anything in this.
Right.
Okay.
Right. That would have to happen.
Mhm.
Because, yeah, we would always probably have a police officer there to deal, because most of the time, even when people call and they get a dispatcher, they'll ask them, are you a police officer? And they'll say no, because they can't give out law or information or anything like that, just regular directions and assist the public the best to their ability at that point. And a lot of times, people calling want to speak with a police officer, and the dispatcher will just turn it over to the police officer.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Next up, Chief Sullivan.
Hi, I'm Mark Sullivan, Fire Chief. I won't waste too much time, and a lot of our dispatching also mimics what Chief Dunn said. We have six employees that are civilian dispatchers, 3 full-time, 3 part-time. The PSAP works the same way. That's the public safety answering point. That's where all the 911 calls go through the sheriff first. They transfer them to us. I would say probably approximately 10 to 20% of the workload may be actual 911 call taking and dispatching. And then the rest is all the other functions that they do in the dispatch center. As far as giving out information, answering calls, I would say we probably answer between 50 to 100 non-emergency calls per day. So that could anywhere between 18 to 35,000 calls per year. I gave out a thing earlier to the select board that showed some of the, what I believe some of the pros or some of the things by having it in a local community is we have 6 residents within the community that know the community very, very well and are able to give directions that you wouldn't believe to the responding units. They can give locations of hydrants, locations of the streets, the areas that they know. They ensure the backfilling of the stations when the stations are emptied by callback. And they realize what our staffing levels are and the contractual requirements. They're constantly entering data as we update it, as we go, and that's similar to some of the chief mentioned, as far as contact information, who owns the building. A lot of our pre-fire plan information is on there that they can also update as the units are on location reporting back. There's always a presence at the fire station. It is 24/7, and we do have numerous walk-ins. We have a lot of fire prevention business during the day. They're there, ability to give answers from the new shops drop-off station, fire prevention information, open burning, events that are going on in the town, and giving directions. We haven't had a firefighter assigned to the desk. Some communities do. In 1998, we freed that up when we hired the civilian dispatchers, and that took a firefighter off the desk and allowed us to get an ambulance up in North Falmouth with 2 firefighters. We've got a lot of money invested into the dispatch center with redundant desk setup, and that's since we did the new fire station, so a lot of planning and investment was going into that. We just recently spent $21,000 this past year on an upgrade for the software, the GPS systems. Some of the challenges we might see is I don't believe we could have a dark station either. I think you need a call taker in there and someone dealing with the public all the time. It seems like you might give up a little bit of local control, having the ability to deal with your people, telling them how things should be done and operated, and operating within your standard operating guidelines without having to massage them to fit something else. We have a municipal fire alarm system, which could be a challenge as far as maintaining that. We have more than 400 master boxes similar to what you see in front of Town Hall. When that alarms, rings, it sends a message right to the station and we respond right away. I say we have more than 400 of those master boxes throughout the town, and that could be a challenge. Maintaining the understanding of our staffing requirements and the minimum manning requirements could be a challenge for someone not familiar with it. And bottom line, possibly losing 6 jobs for 6 residents within the community. And so we respond to about 6,000 calls per year. budget for the civilian dispatch force is $214,000. Like I said, I think we probably have about $900,000 or so invested into the dispatches. Glad to answer any questions.
Can you explain the PSAP process that you currently deal with a little bit
Yeah, it's
more in depth?
same with the police department. It goes into the sheriff's office. They take the initial call, and the sheriff could allude to it better, but I believe they ask you your location, is it a police or fire emergency? And as soon as they say that, they press a button, it goes to the police or to the fire, and then our dispatchers pick it up. Our dispatchers then gather all the pertinent information and are able to dispatch the equipment, and the PSAP has the ability to stay on the line for emergency medical dispatch, and that way our dispatcher can go ahead and give the directions, dispatch the equipment, while the PSAP operator can stay on the line giving CPR instructions or something like that.
So it's not just merely a handoff, that they're actually working
No,
together?
they're listening in, and they
Okay.
have the ability, with our dispatcher say, "County, are you on the line?" They say yes, our dispatcher then can hang up and get the equipment rolling. There's a lot of funding involved, and I'm sure the sheriff and the county folks can get into that a little bit better, about being a PSAP and the funds that go to that, but there's also a lot of requirements that go along with that, where they have to do so much training. So we don't get any of those funds, but if we were a PSAP or even a secondary PSAP, our members, say all 60-some-odd firefighters, would have to go to this 40-hour training class per year. So it's quite involved, and I think these folks could explain that better.
Okay. Any other questions, Chief, right now? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sheriff Cummings?
I have a PowerPoint. Do you want
Yep.
to do this?
Heather's not here, so good luck.
Yeah. Good luck is right.
That was a positive yes, wasn't it, Sheriff? I know you don't hit it more than once. It takes a long time to come back.
Yeah, he takes a while to heat up.
Christmas from the year, not that I'm 100% sure of that.
Is it the room?
Yeah.
Did we ever check this off on the equipment you knew how to operate when we gave you the town manager's job?
It takes that projector just a couple of minutes to warm up.
There you go.
There you go, lights.
Doug, you want to do a few lights?
That's better.
Great.
You want the top middle?
There's two spots there. I think you put it in the wrong one, to tell you the truth. No?
You can move it up. Is it the Falmouth Selectmen one? Is that it?
Well, your eyes are pretty good, Pat.
YouTube Adobe Launchpad. You have to click on one of those icons up there,
It's not one of them, though, is it?
Yeah,
whichever one is the right one.
it's none of those.
Try under my computer, see if we can get to the...
Yeah. Doug, you probably know more about this. Where's Brent when we need him?
What about that one? Falmouth Selectmen, November 19th. Maybe if you put it in the other slot. I don't know if that'll make a difference, but it might. Yeah, moved it up one.
I have to go to startup and then you'll go into...
It should show up.
If you double click on computer.
Yep.
Double click on computer.
Yeah, it should come up.
Yeah, okay.
There you go. And that should, there's the nano.
Oh, yeah. Right, that one. There you go.
All right, we want to minimize that, right?
Go to slideshow? can go to slideshow first. Top middle.
Yeah.
There we go. Just hit the,
Okay. Do that. Like a chair, Julie?
Well, thank you. Jim Cummings, the Barnstable County Sheriff. We'll just run through this PowerPoint. There's only about 18 slides, and I'm certainly not going to read every one of them to you, but it will give you a good idea of exactly what we're up to. Next slide. This is our mission statement, and the important things in there for this meeting. One of our functions is assisting local agencies in promoting public safety through our associated specialized services. And we at the Sheriff's Office hold ourselves accountable to the public and the principles of integrity, professionalism, compassion, and teamwork. Well, best known for overseeing the county jail in Bourne, we also offer an array of off-site services. Taken together, these services help police solve crime, make the Cape safer and better prepared to handle emergencies, and save property taxpayers tens of thousands of dollars every year on construction projects and by operating a regional communication center. The Barnstable County Police Radio System was established in 1933. Our existence was formalized in 1938 when the Massachusetts legislature enacted Chapter 100 of the Acts of 1938 that authorized the sheriff to operate a public broadcasting radio system. In July of 2007, we signed a memorandum of understanding with the state and federal government that enabled us to move our badly cramped and outmoded Emergency Operations Center here to this state-of-the-art facility. This move was done with no cost to the towns we serve using a $1 million Homeland Security grant. The staff at the Sheriff's Center consists of a Chief Deputy Assistant Chief, sergeants, on-site IT personnel, along with 26 full-time telecommunicators and 8 part-time telecommunicators. All are certified in CPR, first responder, basic telecommunications, and emergency medical dispatch. The Communication Center is outfitted with the latest technology. There are 8 workstations like the one you see below. The center handles 911 calls and is equipped for mapping and computer-aided dispatch. Our video monitors enable us to deploy mutual aid for fire and other large-scale disasters. We also provide the link between EMTs and ambulances and doctors awaiting their arrival at hospital emergency rooms. Our Emergency Communication Center has the ability to locate multiple emergency wireless calls quickly and initiate a quick and efficient emergency response to those in distress. The Barnstable County Sheriff's Office Communication Center provides either PSAP call answering and/or fire dispatch for the Barnstable Fire District, the towns of Bourne, Dennis, Falmouth, Chatham, Harwich, Otis Air Force Base, Orleans, Mashpee, Wellfleet, and the West Barnstable Fire District. We are in the process of putting out to bid a $426,000 upgrade to our CAD system. This is being funded by the State 911 Commission through a grant at no cost to the towns we serve. This upgrade will benefit the towns we dispatch for with improved mapping, vehicle tracking, and data exporting to first responders. This slide is just a sample of the towns we dispatch for and the fees we get from each town. That's a yearly fee that you see right there. Technical support, another important public safety function of the Sheriff's Office, is maintaining police, fire, and emergency medical radio systems. They enable users to communicate quickly and efficiently when the need arises. The Technical Support Division handles all facets of communications, including design, planning, implementation, maintenance, and installation. Tech Support also maintains the Sheriff's mobile emergency communication vehicle. This rolling high-tech communication center can perform a variety of roles in critical public safety operations. The truck and the equipment is valued at over $250,000. We also operate the CMed system. We work with 4 hospitals, including Falmouth, Cape Cod, Martha's Vineyard, and Toby Hospital. We handle calls to 60 different ambulances Cape-wide. We also work with both civilian air med flights and the U.S. Coast Guard boat and helicopter units. Our active CMed role begins when a telecommunicator is called upon to provide a vital two-way link. At one end are paramedics and EMTs en route by ambulance to an area hospital. At the other end are doctors and other emergency room staff. Their expert instruction can often make a difference, sometimes a life-altering or life-saving difference to the patient. CMed provides specialized radio communication functions to connect regional hospitals, ambulance services, and the first responders. And again, this service is Cape-wide. We also offer to our folks who are in our system a rapid alert, which is basically a reverse 911 system. I think it was probably last used in Falmouth when we had the missing Alzheimer's patients down in the Woods Hole area. The type of alerts that it can be used for are listed on the next slide. Okay. We also handle mutual aid dispatch and support. At no cost to the town's district and our districts, the Sheriff's Communication Center provides mutual aid dispatch to all of Barnstable County. This is especially crucial during incidents involving multiple towns or in the case of natural disasters. And I think the last example of this being used in Falmouth was probably the fire at Mahoney's a couple of weeks ago, where apparatus is called in from other communities to back up vacant stations that were the result of your fire apparatus responding to the scene of the fire. The scope of our communication services: public safety answering point, PSAP. The Sheriff's Center receives all 911 calls from your town, and this is the service we do to Falmouth. There's no charge for this service. Fire dispatch. The Sheriff's Center handles all dispatch for fire service in your town. The current cost is a $20,000 yearly fee plus $18.50 per call. Police dispatch. We have not been asked to do any police dispatch at this point, so as of right now, we do not do any police dispatch, but we'll certainly be ready, willing, and able if asked. And the future of our Regional Communication Center, the Sheriff's Office is moving forward with the expansion plans. Our goal is to increase the capacity of our communication center to be able to handle call answering and dispatch services to any town or fire district who request us to do so. We will be staffed by state employees, meaning no pension liability to the towns, housed in a state building with no capital cost or upkeep for any of the towns.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. The CMed, are you is the Sheriff's Department the only one that does CMed on the Cape right now?
We are.
So in other words, give me an illustration. Get a 911 call from the town of Falmouth for an ambulance emergency. And so you dispatch that via the hospital? Can you explain that?
Actually, when the ambulance gets the patient and they put the patient into the ambulance, the EMTs or paramedics in the ambulance would get on the radio, call us, and we hook them up directly to the emergency room so that the EMTs, paramedics are talking exactly to the emergency room doctors.
And they're doing that through the Sheriff's Department, not through Falmouth dispatch type of scenario.
Right. We kind of take the radio signal and turn it into a telephone signal so that it's clearer and it's a lot easier to pass information. And it's kind of explained that CMed is kind of like air traffic control for ambulances. We make sure that the patients that are in the most need of critical care get there first and get the necessary treatment first. In other words, a person with a sprained ankle, if someone's going in with a stroke or a heart attack, we certainly make sure the hospital is aware of that, and they certainly get the priority.
Does that typically happen on every rescue run, that there's a CMed call ahead to the hospital?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
We do about 42,000 CMed calls a year.
And I'll probably come back and ask Chief Sullivan whether they have the capabilities to do that themselves. Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Pat. I'm sorry, that was only
Oh,
me.
that's okay. No, I mean, I have seen your operation up there, so I have a pretty good idea of what you do now. But if you were to assume all of the PSAP and the 911 dispatch, how would that affect the types of equipment that you would need to do that? And you would either have to expand what you currently have or upgrade, perhaps?
We would have to expand, and we're certainly looking at those options now. We're looking at expanding the current system. We did look at a vacant school that was out on the military base, the Lyle School, but after the decamp from the state came down and looked at that, they said, you know, you might be much better off using another option than trying to refurbish an old school building. It just wouldn't work out financially for us. So, you know, that's the direction we're moving in. Either expanding our current system, which is kind of in flux. It's a federal building, but it's in the process of maybe being turned over to the state. So there is some opportunities there as well.
Follow-up question. When people turn over services to your department, do they have any say still in what goes on within those services?
Yes. We meet quarterly with the departments we dispatch for, and we go over different issues they might have. We've met relative to this new CAT system we're putting in. The fire chiefs that we dispatch for have come in and given us their input in that. The fire departments also meet with our communication staff relative to ambulance issues, as well as mutual aid issues. So there's a couple of different committees there.
When you actually do dispatch services for communities, do you hire folks from those communities who have some familiarity with those communities?
Well, they certainly would get a priority, but usually the way we're able to save the town's money is by reducing the size of staff. You know, so it's worked out very well for us so far because we've grown slowly. You know, when we were in Barnstable, we had 4 dispatch positions, and that was filled. When we moved up to Otis, where we have 8 dispatch positions, I figured that would be the end of it for me. I wouldn't have to worry about doing another communication center, but we've grown steadily since then. And, you know, we've had more towns come in, and we haven't had anyone leave. We never get any complaints about our service. Everyone says it's an excellent service, and, you know, it's hard to get over that fence sometimes because of all the issues that were mentioned earlier, union issues and taking care of the employees that might lose their jobs or be displaced from this, but all of the towns that have done that are very happy that they did.
Okay. Doug?
And with an enhanced 911 system, when a cell phone call comes in, you can pinpoint exactly where that call is coming from on a map. Even if they didn't know the town well, they could say, I know exactly where that call is and where the incidents occur.
Yes, you know, it takes about 3 months for us to get a new town on board, and the reason it takes so long is because we have to enter all that town's data, GIS stuff, and all the stuff from the fire department relative to hydrant locations, and, you know, all the information you would need for the buildings down in Woods Hole that might have different types of chemicals and stuff like that. That's all entered into our database, and with this upgrade that we're going to now, we're also going to have a Pictomy base in there as well, so you'll actually get a photograph of, you know, the place where we're going, and of course all of that, or the place where the fire service is going. Of course, all of that stuff can be forwarded by computer to the laptop in the fire apparatus.
Okay.
I have one last question. If at some point, let's say this all happens, and if at some point the state determined or the governor determined that your budget had to be cut back, how could this service be protected from budget cuts?
I think it's an essential public safety service, so I think one of the top things that responsibility government has is public safety. So, you know, we've gone through the past 5 years, as you know, continual fiscal cutbacks, and the communication center is the only thing that's continued to grow. And of course, if at some point, you know, the towns we dispatch for, we have contracts with them. You know, the talk is that the towns would be asked to fund this to a greater extent than they do now as it grew. And if the money was coming from the towns, you know, I don't think the state budget would have much effect on that at all.
One tie into what you said about the information being sent to the apparatus visually, and this is some research I did and heard back on actually we had about a month and a half ago about the fire department looking for iPads for their ambulances. There's a whole bunch of research, and that really is the best piece of equipment to be able to both duplicate that in the ambulances and in the fire station. So it was a question I had that I just wanted to get back to, related to this, as to really that is the right piece of equipment as opposed to looking for something cheaper that might save us some money.
I'm going to ask a question that I'm sure has a variable. And the variable is, when we were interviewing for a new town manager, when Mr. Sousa came on, one of the candidates happened to be from the town of Rockland or from Norwell. And he had just worked to accomplish a regional dispatch type of center, and the amounts of money that those communities saved was staggering. We've yet to hear whether the services they were able to provide to those communities was the same, because it was just on that verge. My question and follow-up question to you is where do you see a savings to a community, and do you see, in other words, percentage-wise? Chief Sullivan mentioned somewhere in the vicinity of $214,000 that he has budgeted right now for dispatch. Do you see a savings when a community would try to merge all of those services with an entity like yourself? And I'm sure I'm going to ask the same question to the county, but do you see a savings of 20%, 30%, 40%? I mean, the community out here is going to have to make a value judgment on whether savings is all what they're looking for, or do they think they're going to get better service with what we currently have, or better service with something that is has a little bit more technology, but yet is not central in the town of Falmouth.
I think overall, the important thing is better public safety, is what you're going to get out of this. But I think that, there certainly is cost savings. I mean, if you look at, I think the biggest town we dispatch for right now, fire dispatch, is the town of Dennis. And they pay us $127,297 a year to do their fire dispatch. I mean, that's not even the salary of 2 dispatchers. The other advantage we have is we have 8 dispatchers on the day shift, 8 dispatchers on the evening shift, and 7, 7, and 6 dispatchers on each shift. And they're responsible for the different towns that we service, but they're split up so that no 2 towns is next to each other. So if we're dispatching, a major fire in Mashpee, the dispatcher that takes care of Wellfleet and Dennis is available to help that dispatcher. So they're not all busy at the same time, so they all can chip in and help each other out during, in one area of the Cape is busy.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Anyone else have any questions? Thank you. Appreciate it. If you can, we're going to have another presentation, and we may have open to questions. Mr. O'Brien, nice to meet you.
Thank you. Sean O'Brien, let me pass these out. And some presentations and the position paper of the 911 Dispatch Committee. We have a program as well, but just a little bit of background. My name is Sean O'Brien, and I am the coordinator of the Barnstable County Regional Emergency Planning Committee. With us tonight, we've also have Chief Michael Whalen from the town of Dennis, who's been working with us as a representative of the Barnstable County Police Chiefs Association. We also have Chief Martin Green, who is with the town of Bourne, and he is the fire chief's representative to our steering committee. And what I'd like to do is maybe give you just a little bit of background as to how Barnstable County got involved in this. Quite honestly, we've been in a facilitating role. Any of the work that's really been done here has been done by the towns. It's been work that's been done by the police chiefs and the fire chiefs and the town managers that sit on our steering committee. Quite honestly, all I am is a facilitator. Additionally, I just want to introduce also Deputy Chief Mark Foley, who has been working with some of the Outer Cape towns on this as well. So my apologies to Deputy Foley. We were involved in this back in 2011. We were requested to put a grant together to the 911 board to bring somebody and look at feasibility of consolidation of 911 services for Barnstable County. We hired a company called Intertech Associates based out of New Jersey. And what Intertech did was they took a look at all 15 communities in Barnstable County as to what we're doing for dispatch, police and fire side. It was a good introduction to what was going on in Barnstable County. And that was taking into consideration, there was a regional program going on at the same time through the Sheriff's Department. Many of the towns did their own dispatching as well. So as a part of this study, we actually received 5 main recommendations from them. The first was they recommended we either go with a multi-center or a single-center approach to provide dispatch services to Barnstable County. Number 2, to start look at transition planning. If this is a direction the 15 communities want to go, or any of the communities want to go, to start looking at it and start looking at the different transition. 3 is the development of a steering committee, and I just introduced you to a few folks that participate with that committee. 4 is the development of a governance board. It seems when Intertech was going through the area and interviewing the police chiefs, the fire chiefs, and the folks that work in those departments, one thing that really came up was they wanted a say in how the dispatch center is run. And so that was the governance board. And then lastly was to seek appropriate funding. So the first thing we did in April of this year was to set up this 911 dispatch committee. And the recommendations from Intertech was to have 2 folks from law enforcement, 2 folks from fire. They're law enforcement, we have 2 police chiefs, fire departments, we have 2 police chiefs. We have Cape and Islands EMS that's a part of this. The sheriff has been a member of this committee. We have 1 town manager that serves with us and a county representative, and that's Mark Zielinski. We meet monthly. And what we've done is we've actually gone through and we just kind of discussed some of the issues that may come about, and we developed this position paper, and I've actually handed a copy of that out to you. And this position paper just kind of goes through the recommendations of this steering committee to bring back to the Police Chiefs and the Fire Chiefs Association and also to the town managers. And we've presented that to them as well. We started our meetings and we really started to talk first about the Intertech study. But in order to really look at some of the multidiscipline regional dispatch, we really needed to start looking and doing some field trips. And the first field trip we made was actually to the South Shore Rec, or SHREC, as it's called. And that is in Hingham. We went there and we were able to see it was a group of 4 communities. They came together and developed their own governance, I think their governance board is their town managers. They have this group of folks that have developed a pretty good dispatch center that does both police and fire. Our next visit with the assistance of the sheriff was to the Berkshire County Sheriff's Department. We were able to see, and they primarily did police, and I think they had some fire functions there as well. And we were able to look to see what they do in Berkshire County. A lot of these police stations were small stations, similar in population to some of the communities we have down here. And the last visit we made, there were about 6 of us that went out to see the Onondaga County Regional Dispatch Center. And I think that was kind of the eye-opening experience that many of us saw on how regional dispatch and multidiscipline dispatch can happen. We went in, we met with the gentleman who ran it, Bill Bliley, and we were able to receive a really nice tour of the facility. And quite honestly, on the trip from Syracuse back to the Cape, it was just very interesting to see police chiefs starting to work out the budget numbers to look at potentially moving into this direction with regional dispatch. The sheriff was with us, Deputy Foley was with us, another sheriff's rep, Peter Thomas, was there, and it was really a great opportunity, and it was able to really serve as a nice benchmark and starting point for us. It's kind of allowed us to also bring, and we also brought Mr. Bliley back to meet with the police chiefs, fire chiefs, town managers, etc. Now, a goal of this committee was to put together a position paper. And primarily, there were 5 things that we really wanted to make sure folks got across. And the first was that they recommend the consolidation of dispatch services in Barnstable County. That was the first thing the steering committee, and they wanted to do that into one location, one center to serve Barnstable County. Also, they recommended that it be governed by an independent board, whether it be made up of the users, and is kind of the direction they were going. Do we want the users of the system to have a say in how the system's run? Is that the executive committee, the administrative board, the governance board? They also wanted to make sure that because they wanted to make sure that folks knew, because that we're doing this together as a group, that we have the opportunity to really look for funding sources. Instead of being one community looking for grant money, it's beneficial to be multiple communities looking for grant money. And so it was really important to do that, and it also recognized that that could be one PSAP for Barnstable County, one public safety answering point for the county as well. So the committee continues to meet, and besides putting together this, document, this position paper, we've also started looking at budgets, potential intermunicipal agreements through the communities. Our next step is actually to start looking at the 911 board for grant money, to, in a sense, look for transition money to start to see which towns want to be a part of this effort. Which towns would be interested in an intermunicipal agreement with this? Starting to develop some of the procedures, the governance that could be a part of it. So we're in the process of collecting letters of attestation. These are, in a sense, grant letters of support. We're hoping to be able to put a grant request in this winter. It would be for fiscal year 2014. It would primarily be, a grant to really sit down and to kind of decide, okay, if we can get this together, we start going for the potential of construction, architectural, and I should reverse that, architectural, construction, and how we might want to bring this to fruition. We've also been meeting with legislators to discuss with them this direction. I think it's really important to know that this is something that both the Barnstable County Police Chiefs Association and the Fire Chiefs Association have endorsed. They have endorsed it for one center for the county with a separate governance board, with its own governance board. And that's kind of why we're moving forward. As a facilitator, I'm taking it in the direction they want to go. As the chiefs want to go, and this is the direction that we're moving. And as you can see, we have some folks here. This is the commitment that they have towards this project. Chief? So a lot of things we started beginning the discussion about, and some of that is the dark station issue. Okay. Also looking at the potential: do we build a new facility? Do we take an existing building? These are things that we need to discuss. A lot of this could potentially be covered under 911 grant funding. We could be looking at that. We could be looking at a couple of years to try to put this together. Honestly, we're looking at a 2 to 4 year process here. This isn't going to happen overnight, much like you had mentioned at the beginning of the meeting. This is something that's going to move forward over the years, and we're going to be looking at grant cycles in order to bring this up to speed. It could be some time frame. Some towns have moved to the sheriff, and they're getting a great product, and they have their dispatch, Harwich and Chatham most recently. Because they are in need of assistance now. This is something that we could put together for all the communities a little bit later on. And this would be, we would be looking at some transition funding, et cetera, that would help, kind of bring this forward. Our meetings are public. Anybody's welcome to attend. And we'll continue to keep moving. Our goal is to have a grant written in the next couple of weeks and put it before the 911 board, try to get it funded. Additionally, we've started looking at some of the budget numbers. Just very basic, because we're very early on, but looking at some of the initial costs now to communities. And if you don't mind, I'm going to hand that to Chief Whalen, who actually put these figures together.
I just have one question. You kind of jumped past the one statement there about having a transition for current employees to be able to move into, so that the people who are currently doing dispatch would not necessarily lose their jobs.
Yep, and that's something that Chief Whalen was going to talk about. Because some of the initial figures, actually, that's something we worked into.
Thank you.
Chief.
Good evening, Mike Whalen. I'm the Police Chief in Dennis and Vice Chair of the RAPC, the Barnstable County Emergency Planning Committee, and that's how I end up here in Falmouth 45 minutes before the start of the big game tonight. So I'll try to make it quick on your behalf. What you see in front of you is a worksheet. It's basically looking at this from a little higher level. Instead of looking at just the town of Falmouth or just the town of Dennis, what we try to do is put together kind of an overall view for you of, and for anybody that wants to see it, of what's going on in Barnstable County as a whole. In other words, what does our big picture public safety dispatch look like? And you'll see that overall, we're spending about $10 million or a little more than that overall in Barnstable County on public safety dispatch year over year. We have about 125 employees in public safety dispatch, and that's probably a low number. You take somebody like Falmouth, where Captain Dunover at the police department has both a police officer and a dispatcher on a desk, so oftentimes the police officers don't get counted in that 125 number. So we probably use many more services in the way of personnel services for public safety dispatch than what you see in this worksheet. But to suffice it to say, there's about 125 civilian personnel working on public safety dispatch across the Cape. What we're looking for in this new regional dispatch center, which really kind of puts everybody in the same room, so that police dispatchers and fire dispatchers are talking together, Upper Cape dispatchers and police and fire scenes where we often have to act together at crash scenes or fires, that kind of thing, are sitting across from each other and can be talking to each other much better than we can now. People get a more effective and efficient service when they call on their cell phone. The call doesn't necessarily go to Framingham first at the State Police Center and then get bounced down to the PSAP and then get bounced over to the police department or the fire department. Everything is self-contained in one operation. So we have overall in the Cape about 125 personnel. That in a new center, we've looked at the numbers and we think that that's about the number we're going to need for personnel in a new center. If you look at any of the regional centers across the country, you'll see that what happens historically is they start out with a high number. Over a year or two, you get some attrition out of that dispatch center, which brings it down to a more effective number. And as you get over that training curve, you're able to work with that lower number, and that's where your cost savings are. Partly on the personnel side. The other place where you see the cost-saving number is on the technical side, the hardware side. And frankly, one of the things we haven't mentioned to you yet, but what's coming down the pike, is the question, why did we even look at this to begin with? Well, first of all, we're probably one of the last states in the country that's looking at doing this with their dispatch services. Number two, that fact hasn't been lost on the 911 Commission, and they made it their objective 2 years ago to reduce the number of PSAPs across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And frankly, they've been talking in numbers well below the 300 PSAPs we have now across the Commonwealth. So we either come up with a way to do it ourselves and work together, and frankly, anytime you can get 15 police chiefs to be unanimous on something, I think that's probably something fantastic. But anytime you can get 15 police chiefs and 15 fire chiefs to be unanimous on something, I think it's almost a miracle. So, but we have that in this case. We have all the police chiefs, all the fire chiefs that have agreed unanimously that they want to see a dispatch center under its own governance body, so that we're not vendoring away our dispatch center to a state agency. We're not vendoring our dispatch center away to some other entity over which we don't have the local control. So with the dispatch center paradigm that we're looking at here, the users would control the system, the director would report to an administrative board made up of the users, and I think that was what we saw in Onondaga County, and that's what we want to see here across the tape, and that's why we're so passionate about making this happen. The state's already said we're going to reduce the number of PSAPs across the state. One way or another, either the local communities get on board, or we'll put with the carrots we're putting out, or later on we'll put the sticks out. And what we're trying to do is take advantage of the carrots that are out there before the sticks come. So overall, as I said, $10 million budget across the Cape, 125 employees. We're looking to bring all that together in one efficient and effective public safety dispatch center. And over time, we believe that every town will see some level of savings out of that. Will we have issues about dark stations? Will individual communities need to look at those issues and make decisions, just as Dennis is doing right now, about how we deal with that? Absolutely. But to me, the issue of who answers the window, who talks to the person walking into the station, is a different question than the public safety dispatch and call receiving piece of the activity.
Okay. I'm going to open it up to questions. I have a couple of questions for you, if I might. Number one is that this body or governance board, will the votes be weighted?
Weighted.
Meaning we have some rather small communities, and you're talking about 15 communities that would be participating. Then we have some rather large communities that have quite a bit of funding that they put into these types of services. Would the votes be weighted? Meaning, in other words, based on the population, based on the amount of money that one would be spending within the entity. Cape Cod Commission, we have a vote that's weighted. Things like that. That's why I'm asking that question.
We don't.
That's not correct.
That's not
It's not
correct.
the commission.
Oh,
It's
okay. The Assembly of Delegates, I'm sorry.
There is a vehicle in the county that does that, the Assembly of Delegates. That's something we're still working on, quite honestly,
Okay.
is this is very early on, but these are the type of questions, this is the input we would like, is, those questions really help us as we start to put together governance and things of that sort. So, great question. But it's still very early on as we're going through, and that's one of the things that we're looking to the grant to address, is our questions like that.
Another question, and the question is, we have some, that they say if it's not broke, don't fix it. Sometimes you take something and you try to make it better. We have a system, a county system, county sheriff's system that's working there. Has there been outreach from the county group to be able to get some kind of governance or say of how that process would be working? I guess instead of looking at you, Mr. O'Brien, I'm looking at who's representing the group. In other words, it appears that what you're talking about is you want some control over the system. Your group wants some control. Has there been an overture to be able to get some control with the system that's currently there, meaning the sheriff's department has a facility and things of that nature?
When the Intertech study came along, we were all involved in that study. It was done through the RAPC, the sheriff's office was involved, every town was involved. All the information that you see in front of you and the information from the Intertech study came from each individual town providing that information. They didn't make it up as they went along. And I'll speak only for the police chiefs, not for the fire chiefs, but from the police chief's perspective, when we looked at doing a regional dispatch center, we specifically wanted the sheriff to be part of this project going forward. At a number of our meetings, we discussed it with the sheriff and his staff. At the steering committee meetings, the sheriff was part of that committee, as well as Peter Thomas, who I've known since I've been here and knew him before when I was involved in dispatch activities in other towns. And we wanted the sheriff's office to be involved. We wanted their personnel to be involved. But we also wanted to take this a different way as far as the overall governance. In other words, we wanted the sheriff to have one of those seats on the governance board that we just talked about, but we wanted the governance board to have the overall say in how things move forward and not just have it as one entity. In other words, the way it is now, that it's a state agency. The sheriff's office has moved over to the state, so it's a state agency. We were originally looking to do this as a district, which the new legislation allows a communications district to be formed, much like you would a water district or that type of thing. But we knew that that would be problematic and a slow way to go with regard to getting the legislation. So what we looked at instead through the committee was to have the county act as kind of the purse strings, if you will, act as the entity through which the employees would be hired and the finances and the payroll accountables and so forth would be paid. But with the understanding from the county that the overall direction, control, and command, so to speak, of the dispatch center would be run by the administrative board, and then the director, whoever was hired as the director, would report to that board. And it would be the users that would make up the board, so that the users would have say over personnel issues, over finance issues, over what the bill was each year. That isn't necessarily the case now. So that is where we wanted to go, and unfortunately we're not there at this point. So, but we believe very strongly from the chief's, police chief's side of it, that for this to work and for this to be successful, it needs to be done this way and not sent off to a vendor to run the process.
Okay. Again, my question was, has there been overtures to the county sheriff's department on whether or not they would accept a governance type of board?
Yes.
For that? Okay, that's really what my original question was.
There were overtures.
Just overtures?
And the answer was no.
Okay.
So that's why we're at the point we're at today.
Okay.
So that's why we're at the point we're at today, and that's why we're looking to move forward this way.
Okay. Geography sometimes plays a role in the Cape, especially in regional services. The Cape, although it's relatively an island, we might all disagree with that, but we're an island, and it's a long way from one end of the island to the other. And we surely can work to our benefit by providing some regional services on the Cape. But does it play into anything of having the sheriff's department at one end of the island, meaning in the town of Bourne and up this way? Because we use a lot of mutual services. We use the canines in Falmouth. We use a lot of in our drug task force type of scenario and things of that nature. I don't know whether that's necessarily the Cape for the case further down in the Cape. So those are some questions I'm going to throw out there. It appears in the press that there is a little bit of a squabbling about this, and that's why we're having a workshop, because we want to find out all the answers. We want to get your input, we want to get the chiefs as well as our own chiefs, both police and fire, of how we move forward.
I don't think it's just Falmouth that uses the sheriff's services. Certainly we use the sheriff's services Mid-Cape. I'm speaking for Dennis, Mid-Cape Town. We use the CIO services for crime scene processing. We have a canine, but when the canine's not working and we need a canine, if the sheriff's canine is on the road, we use the sheriff's canine. We have a regional SWAT team. We train with the team that pretty much kind of makes up the Mashpee, Falmouth sheriff's team. In fact, I think next week we have the newer Bearcat that we have for the team going to do training with the sheriff's team. So I think there are a number of areas where we come together and are able to work together. And I frankly, I speak for myself on this one. I mean, I had hoped that we could work together on this one. But to me, and I'm speaking only for myself now, it is a very strong feeling on my part that for this particular operation to work, it needs to be run by the people that are using the system. And that, to me, that's the most important piece about going forward.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions from?
Well, I just,
Well, no, I'm sorry. You have a question, Ann?
No, I'm asking the question, other questions from the board. Did you have some other input to my question?
Yeah, my name is Marty Green. I'm the fire chief's represent to the subcommittee that's been working through this. A couple things.
In the town you're from, sir? I'm sorry.
Excuse me?
The town.
Town of Bourne.
Okay, great.
Okay. A couple things. Ultimately, the committee is seeking, that letter of attestation, is to support the grant. That requires no financial commitment from any town that puts a letter forward. So it's just to further study things. A long-dead colleague of mine in my early days in this business, always insisted to me in learning that not to study something, just to look at it is critical. There's other things relative, what Chief Whalen said, I'm in full agreement with, relative on the fire chief side. There's 20 different fire chiefs and 15 different police chiefs on the Cape, and they're all interested in looking at this model. I've had regional dispatch, the Barnstable County Sheriff Office dispatches my town 12 years, 10, 12 years now, and I think some of us are old enough that we have to start relying on technology. I understand the fears you may have. Like, we had an old joke in my community with the Dunkin' Donuts by the rotary near the bridge, but in the canal. Well, they had to find out which side of the canal, which bridge, which Dunkin' Donuts. We have to rely on the technology, because frankly, that tells that dispatcher, that call taker, what's happening and where they are. You're right, they can monitor a cell phone call, especially with the vast majority of 911 calls come in nowadays. They can literally pick you up exactly where you are. If you're driving in the car, on that map, you move. So they could literally, if you're around the corner from the fire station or a police station, direct you into it. The other comment I had is relative to dark station. This is from my experience in my community. Having been in the department the other side of 30 years, it was a huge culture shock for me. I have 4 stations, Falmouth has 5, but only one of them was staffed 24/7 when we had our dispatcher. The other ones all had, if the crew went out, they knocked on the door, no one was there. All of our stations have signage relative to if no one answers the door, call 911. One of my stations actually has a pull box. We have the Kingfisher radio box system like Falmouth does, and part of that pull box is for medical. There's been a few times, frankly, we've had somebody pull that box requesting an ambulance when that ambulance, in this case the Sagamore station's been out. Huge learning curve on the fire side. In fairness, the police side, that's a whole different set of challenges. There's other alternatives the study looks at, whether it's regional lockup. For example, Falmouth that gets funding for regional lockup for 6 towns or 4 towns in the Upper Cape. So we have to kind of look at this eyes wide open. Because again, the letter attestation just supports the second phase, which is bricks, mortar, personnel, costs, relative to this. And so that's kind of where we're at. Again, I started in this business, I was a dispatcher in my department, and to go to that regional dispatch, I share a dispatcher with a smaller town on the Cape. I really have no huge complaints. I mean, from time to time, there's bumps on the road where there ever be, but again, the staff tends to know the town. We worry about running cards, running assignments, and so forth. Technology, it's all in front of them. I have different assignments for different parts of my town, and I can tell you, any different day, my staffing changes for a multitude of reasons, whether it's vacation, sick, or someone goes home sick, and I have to close a station, open a station. I have about the same runs Dennis has, about 4,000 calls a year. And it works, and if budget wasn't an issue, would I like something different? Certainly, but it works, frankly. And that's why my town is supportive of it. My Board of Selectmen, my town administrator supported the letter attestation because it's to study. It's not to stop things, it's not going to happen tomorrow, but for us it's work.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
I have one more question. And that relates to equipment. You alluded to the fact that there could be some savings, and I'm thinking that if there were regional dispatch, now every station, police, fire has their own equipment, it has to be replaced, it has to be maintained. Are you going to include in this study what savings might come about because of the regional dispatch as opposed to every town doing the same thing in terms of equipment and needing all that equipment?
Well, I think there's 2 ways to look at that. Number one, the technology is constantly changing. So in any type of proposal, if this moves forward, as it does move forward, we would be looking at new equipment for the dispatch center itself and probably the use of some that may be within the communities. But also, you may need to think about just having some backup. And so some communities may maintain theirs, but Chief, I don't know if you have anything you want to add on that, because the Chief has actually run a center before.
Well, I think the biggest thing coming down the pike is next generation 911, and when it comes down, the money's going to be huge for the hardware. It's one of the reasons why the state's pushing so hard to reduce the number of PSAPs, because they don't want to have to pay to put a next generation 911 hardware in each of the 300 PSAPs. We're used to, us, I'm talking about our generation, we're used to picking up a phone and calling somebody on it. It used to be rotary, then it went, Today, people don't call on the phone. They text. So how are we going to deal with text calls, 911 calls, as opposed to voice 911 calls. Those are all things that the next generation 911 is looking at, different ways of getting communication back and forth, sending video back and forth, sending other data back and forth. And that's all going to be included in the next generation 911, and that's what the state is most concerned about, having to pony up the money for.
Thank you.
Thanks. I'm going to turn it back to the folks who've already spoken, so if they want to, meaning the two chiefs, or Sheriff Cummings, if you want to add something as we move forward. Okay.
First is, I have a sheriff's meeting Thursday, and I'm sure I can get all the sheriffs to vote that the sheriff should run the regional communication system for Cape Cod. And as far as being a vendor, you know, the sheriff's office is a regional public safety entity. We don't make a profit on this. As a matter of fact, right now, we subsidize our communication center out of my operational budget by just about $1 million. And the people who are working over there taking the calls are dedicated public safety employees. You know, the sheriff is elected by all of the people of Barnstable County to do regional public safety, and that's what this is. As far as the governance issue goes, we looked at Essex County, the Essex County sheriffs and police chiefs and fire chiefs up there. They're just in the process of moving in to a center that was just built by the 911 Commission. They've agreed on a governance system that I was very happy with. The issue was it gave sheriff day-to-day control of the operations, hiring, firing, HR, which the sheriff does and which I would be willing to do without any charge. You know, there's no fee for that. We do that now. You know, we take care of all of those back office issues that go along with, you know, employing, in our case right now, a little over 30 people. You know, so the sheriff's office in Dukes County, sheriff's office in Berkshire County, and the sheriff's office in Essex County all run regional communications center, and they handle the day-to-day operation of those centers. We've been doing this for many, many years. We know how to do it. I have the people to do it, not only the dispatch side, but also the technical side. The people I have in staff now could design this whole thing and get it built and get it up and running. You know, so to me, I think we have to start thinking about the taxpayers. We spent a lot of money for the equipment in the communication center we have now. I mean, it's certainly not big enough to hold the whole Cape, but as was mentioned earlier, you know, why are we going to start from square one? You know, I just wanted to address those issues, some of the things that came up. You know, we provide the cities, towns across the Cape with BCI, K9 radio techs, and our community service crews. There's no governance board for any of those things. The towns call, the police departments call, the fire departments call, the community calls, and we go. That's my job. That's what I got elected to do, and I certainly will continue to do that.
Okay, thank you. Acting Chief Dunn or Chief Sullivan, anything else you want to add in here? Any public comment in regard to this? Mr. Finnick?
Mark Finneran, Precinct 6. In describing the services they currently have, Chief Dunn and Chief Sullivan pointed out that they have some personnel that have close, intimate, and personal knowledge of the town, and that seemed like a good thing. You know, if you're dispatching, you might have personal knowledge of the person that's receiving the service, which may be, in some cases, quite important. I was just wondering, is there any consideration being made to where it's kind of a hybrid or a combination of both the police and fire, maybe at least in an interim period, to perhaps, you know, have some appreciable savings right off?
As we started the discussion this evening, that was one of the alternatives that this board and the folks in this community have as an option. Okay. Keep the way we are, merge what we have, meaning police and fire, county, or the sheriff's department. So that was one of the options that you just did.
That's kind of appealing in my mind.
I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I'm going to delve into the political. I probably shouldn't.
Careful policy, remember.
Yeah, it seems like we're reinventing the wheel, where you're kind of asking the taxpayers to pay for two trains running on parallel tracks, one that's already left the station. I just, from the taxpayer's point of view, I think it might be better to come to some kind of an agreement before we have to spend all this money and just, you know, use what we have maybe in a better fashion. But like I said, that's political.
That's why I was asking folks to read between the lines tonight. We had some opportunities for negotiation as you move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate everybody's comments, appreciate the board's participation. Again, there is no action on this evening. If we may take it up as another discussion item, something to look into, maybe put together some kind of committee to look at this. Committees continue to become overwhelming, but maybe police and fire, a couple of folks from the finance committee, and maybe some representation from the Board of Selectmen that we could move down and look at all the options as we go. Again, this is not something that's happening overnight. This is something that we'll continue to look at. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay. Okay, next up is to discuss a special events policy. Ms. Harper put this together. And I know that this is really addresses a little bit of some of the waivers and the scenarios that happen within the office where folks are looking for a fee waiver. There was only one other issue that her and I spoke of under the fee exemptions that wasn't put on here that her and I thought might be something that would warrant an opportunity. And the fee exemptions granted by the town manager, the town would exempt daily fees only for special events sponsored by the Falmouth Village Association, West Falmouth Village Association, Woods Hole Community Association, T-Ticket Village Association, East Falmouth Village Association, Falmouth Chamber of Commerce, Falmouth VIPS, Falmouth Public Schools, and the town of Falmouth. Now, there was one other one that we talked about afterwards, and that was the Falmouth Fireworks Committee, because they very often try to raise funds for special events to be able, for the fireworks. It's not a profit maker, it's a quality of life issue, so that would be another one. Again, this is a draft. It's open for discussion. I wanted the board to maybe give us some input, so Heather could, know how to continue to formulate this policy, as well as the board could look at it. So, go ahead, Doug.
First, a few minor edits. I think it's the town manager, not the town manager.
Okay.
Manager on the exemptions.
It's the holiday. She was in the holiday season, I guess. So.
And how I read the fee exemption is the town will exempt daily fees through the town manager's office. We may exempt fees, as it says below, by the Board of Selectmen's decision, but I'm not sure I would put the only in there. That I read that only suggesting we're not going to ever do it for anything else, but the Board of Selectmen may decide to waive it for other reasons. I would not list all the village associations unless we're going to list all the village associations.
Well, I think she thought she covered them all, but that's why we kind of put it out there.
I know there's a Wacoit Association. I know there's also a Quistit Association.
Okay.
There's the North Falmouth. I think there's a Second Asset Bill.
I thought that was in the, no, okay.
And I'd be concerned about doing that.
So maybe we could just put the word village associations?
Probably. I think that might be.
Established village associations.
Yeah, that's maybe a good idea, sure.
And wondered if we should include other schools in addition to the public schools if they're going to be doing it for the same kind of a.
I agree with that. Falmouth schools, any type of, any school located in Falmouth?
Where again, I don't, if they're raising funds for their own, I think there may be some daycares or preschools that are raising money for their benefit. I wouldn't see that as a waiver, as an exemption. So I'm not sure exactly how to word that one, but that was just.
Okay, so I'll put the notes there and I'll ask her to come up with something.
Thank you.
There. Julie, are you writing notes on this?
Yes.
Okay.
There was also occur, I'm trying to remember there was another verb that, I can't remember what it was.
A broad community benefit in the second paragraph, second sentence. Not broach, but broad.
Yeah. Sometimes spell check is too good.
Yeah. Well, broach is a word.
Yeah, I know it is, that's what I
That's
mean.
probably why it doesn't work.
Recur under reference
And,
example.
For example, a musical event at the band shall recur one day each and I assume that's occur.
Where do you see that?
Under the recurrence and daily fee,
Oh,
or maybe it is recur. I think it's actually reoccur.
Musical event at a band show will recur one day each.
it's occurrence. Question on that word. Not sure.
That's a good one to look up.
No, I think this is a good start.
It's a good start.
Very
Yeah, it's
good.
falling
I-
into what we had discussed,
Yeah.
once we make those couple of its corrections, so.
Okay, so we'll move that back to her, and,
Someone's got their hand up, I don't know if you're interested.
yes, Mr. Hoffman, you want to come up?
Don Hoffer, Beach Superintendent. I came here because I get involved in loads of special events, and I didn't know exactly what your agenda was. The only thing I want to say is, with all these different village associations, I think you ought to look at what if they're doing something for the benefit of the town, which some of them do, definitely they should have a waiver, but if they're doing something for themselves, I mean, that's up to you. But a lot of the associations nowadays are trying to help, for example, the beaches, and I'm very strong on giving them a fee waiver. And it's the same when you have different, like multiple sclerosis, or, you're running for a particular charity, that type of stuff. They should request from you folks to fill out the special event form, but usually you try to give a waiver to
The distinction
charities.
The distinction we have here is that some of them are being granted by the town manager.
Yeah.
The other ones can request a waiver, which we can then grant.
Okay.
So we can still cover all the ones you're talking about, but the other ones are being done without having to come to the Board of Selectmen for the waiver.
There are some that we need to be cautious of, too, that some folks say this is going to benefit this. And how much really is it going to benefit? A portion, or is it the entire event designated to benefit? I know like there's the Paul White Road Race, and it goes for
I'm not trying to be
charity.
tough on the associations,
I
because
know
they're
that.
very supportive of the
Right.
beaches.
A lot of them add to quality of life in their own little community and section of the town. So, but maybe you can get a copy of this and take a look at it and put your input into to Heather as we move forward.
Be fine.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hopper. Anything else from the board on that? Okay, next up is to announce the April 2013 annual town meeting and special town meeting schedules. Our new finance director and Heather Harper have put this schedule together, and as the board can see, it's a little tight, so I'm going to read it out loud. For the annual town meeting, selectmen will announce the town meeting this evening, December the 10th. We'll close the warrant on Friday, January the 4th. Selectmen will vote the articles and execute the warrant on Monday, January 28th. We'll publish the articles on Friday, February the 1st. Selectmen will vote the recommendations on Monday, March the 11th. And we'll publish the warrant with the recommendations on March the 22nd. Town meeting will be, again, as we have all voted already, on Monday, April the 8th. The special town meeting.
Do we actually announce this one? I mean, what you're about to read is that we announce a special town meeting not till January. So do we actually do that tonight, or do we just do the...
They wanted us to read this out this evening.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I asked that. Okay.
Great.
Selectmen will announce the special town meeting on Monday, January the 14th. The warrant will close on January the 25th. Selectmen will vote the articles and execute the warrant on February the 4th. We'll publish the articles on February the 8th, and selectmen will vote the recommendations on Monday, March the 11th. Publish the warrant and recommendations on Friday, March 22nd, and again, special town meeting will take place on Tuesday, April the 9th. So do I have a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. As the board can see, we will be up against a tight schedule, at least in early January, to hold the placeholders for January the 4th. We don't have a meeting between now and then. We will probably have a budget meeting. No, pardon me, we have a meeting on the 17th. But we will probably have a budget meeting before that. Wouldn't be on a regular meeting night typically. Try to schedule something that works for everybody.
January 1st.
What are we gonna leave for?
Okay. Next up is approve the minutes of December the 3rd, and approve the executive session minutes of December the 3rd and to not release. So the minutes of December the 3rd, do I have a motion to approve? Pat wasn't here, so it's either.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Motion?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
One extension.
Okay. And executive session minutes of December the 3rd, to approve and not release.
Can I just ask a general question? Because you
Yes.
all have been around a lot longer than I have. When you have an executive session like this with so many issues in it, is it possible that one becomes ripe before another one that could be let out? So I was wondering, there's another committee in town, when they do their executives, every issue's on a separate page in case one of the, Frank says you have to release a particular, without having to redact everything. You know what I'm saying? I'm just wondering.
That's a good question, but it was always my interpretation that you didn't release anything out of the whole minutes unless they were all ready to go. But we can ask Frank.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Well, I think it does work better if the executive session minutes are on a separate page, rather than be, is that what you're
No,
saying?
what
No, I
he's saying
mean-
was we had 3 different issues. Do each
Oh.
issue on a separate page.
One of the committees in towns does that, and I guess some of their
I think
things
that
have
would
to...
be cumbersome, that's the only thing, because people would be looking for the minutes of, of December the 3rd, they might have one executive session released and think that's the entirety.
Well, and the
I just
issue
wondered.
is you have one executive session, and if you have 3 topics, they're included in what is referred to as the executive session minutes of a specific date. So if you start to break it down,
You'd have
it
to
will
adjourn
get
it.
very confusing. So I think you have to...
So Frank comes to us and says you have to release it from that, but there's an issue there that can't be. What, do you redact it in the issue and give them
No,
out?
we just
I
wait
think you just wait till all
for all the
are
issues
resolved.
are ready to be released.
Okay.
I would move that we accept the minutes and not release them from the executive session December 3rd.
Motion?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Abstain.
Oh, and that one abstention. Okay. We'll go under summary of actions. We'll take up both the items individually because we need to read into the record the annual license renewals.
60 some odd.
I realize that.
I have a question on one. Should I ask it before we get started so we can just do the whole list?
Well, when we get to the all-alcoholic, I think I'm going to hold them. Go ahead.
This is on the entertainment license for Anchor Ale House. Just I remember that we had had a number of concerns about the timing of the entertainment on that one. I was wondering if we'd heard anything more, maybe Mr. Suso has heard anything from the neighbors concerning that establishment?
I have not.
Great, okay.
I know that we did not extend their hours of entertainment, and I believe they're still currently till 11 p.m., so.
Thank you. I'm all set to go now.
Okay, if the board would so like, we could do all except the all-alcoholic restaurant licenses all at once. Does the board want me to read them all, or do you?
I have no problem, but do we have to read them? Is that
No,
what
I
you're doing
don't
right
think
now?
we do.
Okay.
Okay?
I would move the licenses as listed with the exception of the all-alcohol restaurants at this time.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. All alcoholic restaurant licenses, I want to disclose that I'm the holder of an all alcoholic seasonal liquor license, and that I will abstain from the vote on the Fishmonger Cafe because of the close proximity to that restaurant in my restaurant. So I entertain a motion for everyone except the Fishmonger Cafe originally.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The Fishmonger Cafe,
Move approval of the Fishmonger Cafe.
Second.
motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain? Me? One? Thank you. Okay, there's a lot of signatures, folks. You can either do it this evening or stop by the office, whichever you prefer to do.
I'll start.
Okay.
I'll be done by New Year.
The next up is to ratify the term ending for the Cape Cod Commission representative. This is to fill an unexpired term, which is April the 24th, 2015. The term expires on April the 24th, 2015. There has been some suggestions to the chair that that we might not have the term start as of yet, but I think the board actually had voted the term and the representative at the last meeting, so I think that starts, but I would ask that the representative make sure that he meets with the executive committee and the folks at the Cape Cod Commission before, because this is a regulatory body, before participating in any votes, to make sure that the representative is up to speed on the learning curve of the commission, because it's important, just like any other committee that one would join, any other regulatory board. If one would have joined the Conservation Commission, Zoning Board of Appeals, it would behoove any member to make sure they were up to speed on what goes on in that particular committee.
Mr. Chairman, I had a few comments to make,
Sure.
if I may, at this time. And I'd like to respond, these are not personal comments regarding Mr. Putnam, these are comments regarding the process. But I would like to say the Cape Cod Commission is a quasi-judicial commission, meaning it has legal requirements that are stated in the Mass General laws, the statute which actually governs the powers of the Cape Cod Commission. And I think I happened to be at the executive committee meeting this morning, and it was suggested by the executive director that a new appointee spend some time with the executive director before attending any meetings, and also with the Commission's legal counsel, because there are certain requirements of every Commission member regarding what they can say, what they cannot say, what questions they can respond to, and what you can't, because of the legal requirements of the hearings. Now, the Commission, as you probably know, has been involved in the regulatory aspect of land use, but is also involved with the technology assistance, but also planning. The Cape Cod Commission is the planning agency for Barnstable County. That is really what they do. In the last 5 years, the regulatory aspect of the Commission has decreased considerably because the limits under the development of regional impact have increased to 40,000 square feet, whereas before they used to be 10,000 square feet. So there's a lot of change that has taken place in the Commission. And the other aspect of what they do in terms of planning is also the technical support that they provide to towns, communities, which they are doing now in this town with Little Pond. But I wanted to mention just a couple of things. And the first is Mr. Finneran's statement that was in the paper the other day, that a selectman sent an email to the Board of Selectmen regarding the appointment. And I wanted to make clear that that email came from me. And it was in response to an email that I received and the other selectmen received on November 20th from the town manager, informing us that we had a candidate for the Cape Cod Commission appointment, and the candidate was Dr. Edward Gross. And I responded at the time, immediately within a couple of hours, to the email saying, this is wonderful. We've been months without a representative. Dr. Gross is an excellent candidate, comes with great credentials, and I would certainly suggest that the board interview him in a reasonable period of time and get him on the agenda so that we can make that appointment. I was never aware that Andrew Putnam was a candidate, ever, until I returned to Falmouth last week. So I didn't know there was a second candidate. I was simply, because I have been working with Diane Davidson for months, making sure that the position was advertised, reaching out to people, trying to encourage them to apply, all of that sort of thing. So The other comment I wanted to make, well, I mentioned that. Really, Mr. Chairman, the county, the Cape Cod Commission does really not permit buildings, and I know that you were quoted in the paper as saying that. Developments of regional impact are handled very differently now. You may know that there were at least 5 of them in the last year in Falmouth. The hockey rink was one. The Hui, one down on the Pacific campus, was another. The Benthos was a third project. Teledyne. These projects were reviewed by the commission because the town does not have a land use vision map. If the town had a land use vision map, the commission would probably not have been involved. But also, I think it's important to say that in each and every case, the Cape Cod Commission waived the fees on all those projects. There was really they applied for a hardship exemption, which is a fee waiver, and all of those projects received that exemption. So there was no financial burden on the part of that. Currently, there is a subcommittee of the commission looking at the work of the commission, because it's been very difficult to get people to serve because the workload is huge for each commission member. I have been the county commissioner's representative for the last 2 years, and I can tell you the workload is huge. So because some towns are having difficulty finding people who are willing to be considered for the position, they're looking at changing a lot of what is currently part of the program, which are meeting times, locations where the meetings are, the workload on the commission members, and there really is just too much work for all of us, so that is in the process of being changed. The other thing I wanted to mention was normally on our board, when we interview a candidate or 2 candidates at a time, oftentimes we actually wait a week before the appointment is made. And many times, particularly Selectman Putnam has often asked that we not appoint that night, that we give each member of the board time to really take a look at the application and the references and so forth. And I bring that up because that didn't happen this time. And I realize that it's become a very controversial appointment for a lot of different reasons. And I think sometimes if we stick to some of the practices that we've had in the past, that they may work to our benefit. And lastly, I just want to say that since I had no opportunity to participate at all in the interviews or in the appointment of the candidate, I will not participate in this discussion tonight regarding the term.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Can I say something briefly?
Sure.
As you know, because I spoke with you, I think, over the weekend about this, the turmoil about this, but being accused myself of twice now, once to my face, one on a phone call, of having a backdoor deal because of this. I think I've only met him once, back in 2009 or 2010 or something, although when he's been here. I spoke with nobody before I looked at the applications and did the interview. I didn't speak with the Enterprise, Cape Cod Times, Channel 13, or the Pony Express. Nobody. I made my own decision, and I just want the people to know that there was no deal, nothing. I took the candidates as I interviewed them, and I picked the one I wanted, so nothing was ever said to me prior to any of this vote. I did not reach out to anybody. As I said, the only thing I had read was your email, Pat, about Mr. Gross, but I didn't want to respond to it because I think I would have been deliberating, and I don't want to get in trouble for that. But I just want that to be known to the public in this room, people watching, and whatever you put in the paper. I spoke with nobody. It was my own decision. But I was accused of that, and twice now. And I just want to make that perfectly clear. I'm not going to sit here and be distrustful. I'm telling you the truth.
Are we having a vote on this term?
All's that, quite candidly, town council's response, and for folks out there, town council has weighed in because there have been several questions to town council in regard to this appointment. Town council has basically said that you can't revote the appointment. You can reconsider it, but only the evening of the appointment. That the only way that anyone could be removed from the position, is for malfeasance. So that option is not on the board. This term is not set by the Board of Selectmen. The term, from Town Council's memo, is set by the Cape Cod Commission, and the term expires on April the 24th, 2015, which is an unexpired term. The board would like to ratify that term so that folks out there actually know it, that's fine. But that's what the term is, and town council has said that it is not necessary to ratify the term. I will say that I agree, Pat, that Selectman Putnam is a stickler and usually wants to take everything under advisement. I can say that on my behalf, as well as other members of this board, we thought that that has been cumbersome on many an occasion. We discussed that before we actually put the names in a nomination that evening, the members that were here and voting, because we'd been without a voting member there for 9 months, whether we wanted to participate and move the selection process forward. I will read out of your email the last line. I encourage you to interview him as soon as reasonably possible. And that was on November the 20th. This meeting was on December the 3rd. So as we all know, we all have an opportunity. We received the packets on the Thursday before the meeting. It does not violate open meeting law for anybody to correspond individually with each other. So if there was some concerns that folks had with each other, that should have been expressed to those folks. I will also say that the reason I make all of my decisions is not fully disclosed, because I surely do not want to discourage folks from continuing to apply. I make a balanced judgment on what I think, because I know folks in the community. I have the ability and have had the opportunity to meet, in this particular case, both candidates, have interaction with both candidates. So I made my own value judgment. I surely do not intend on explaining why I made my judgment and my vote, but I believe it was in the best interest of the town at the time. So it's up to the board whether or not you wanted to ratify the term, and the term would be April the 24th, 2015, or you did not.
Well, you have to appoint going forward.
That's right.
He wasn't appointed.
He was appointed. The town council said he was appointed that evening. Pardon me?
No. Well, before you do that, let me just say one thing about this. I saw the email from Diane inviting, first of all, when I sent that email, it was a response to the town manager's email. There was one candidate at the time. I had no idea that Mr. Putnam would be a candidate at the time I sent that. So I find there is nothing inappropriate. What I was saying is we have a candidate, a viable candidate, an experienced candidate, someone who is qualified, and we should move on the appointment. If I had known there was another candidate, I might not have said that. But the other point I want to make is I missed one meeting. And that was
well-deserved, right there.
And, I mean, I'm the only selectman on this board who has had as much contact with the Cape Cod Commission, being a member of the Cape Cod Commission and being a member of the board that provides oversight to the Cape Cod Commission. And it would seem to me that you could have given the courtesy of putting it 1 week later to give me the opportunity to weigh in on this appointment, to the opportunity to interview Mr. Putnam. I didn't know he had applied till I returned a day after the appointment was made. I'm just saying that I think in the past we have always given consideration to a selectman who may have been away at a particular meeting, particularly if the issue is something that that particular selectman may have some knowledge of or could provide some information to the board that might have been very useful in terms of how you make the appointment. I just want to get that out there.
Okay.
Now, the appointment, the terms of the Cape Cod Commission begin on April 25th of each year, and they conclude on April 24th, 3 years hence. So this is now an interim appointment. So he has to be appointed from this day forward, some day between now and April 24th of 2015, because the term ends. So it's in fact, it's a term that has already begun. So he has to be appointed to a date going forward, not a date going backwards.
That's correct, and the date going forward is April the 24th, 2015, and if I can read
That's the
what
end.
town, I realize that, if I can read what town council has to say. The failure to specify a term does not indicate that the appointment in the term, the failure to specify a term does not invalidate the appointment, and the term expires whenever the Cape Cod Commission Act determines it ends. The Cape Cod Commission Term Act says that it ends on April the 24th, 2015. So that's what town council says. If someone wants to rebut that, that's fine. But town council, I realize that you had some conversation with town council. There was some concerns from the board that I forwarded those concerns to town council. He was very thoughtful about his approach and his response. And as far as I'm concerned, as we move forward, we can either, as a board, ratify the term, which ends on April the 24th, 2015.
And it's granted
It has to be
10th day,
It was-
December
There
2012.
has to be a beginning date.
There
for the
was, the
appointee.
10th, he was appointed on the 10th of December.
That's the beginning of the term.
That was
Is
the
what
beginning.
you're saying?
That's correct. That-
Today.
That was the beginning of the term.
It's actually going to be to the 10th.
Well, we
It
could
was the
ratify
third.
that term, right, from that.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would just like to clarify that I misunderstood at our meeting last Monday night the need for whether we needed to have 2 votes or 3 votes. And I was under the impression, to be able to appoint him, we needed to have 3 votes of us, and that was my reason for changing the votes. Town council has now affirmed that we did not need to have that vote, that 2 was sufficient, and if I had known that, I would not have voted the way I did.
Well, town council was explaining the law to us, but we have a policy in place. And the selectmen's policy that I have here actually states that regulatory bodies must have 3 votes to be appointed. So that's the policy that was affected by the Board of Selectmen, and that's the reason that we discussed it. And the board had an opportunity, incidentally, at that time, to delay the vote, and we decided not to do that. So this was enacted on May the 16th, 2011, this policy. I was unaware of this policy until that evening. So that's where the 3-vote scenario came. According to the law, we only needed 2 votes. But a Board of Selectmen policy that the board voted, we lived by the policy until we changed the policy.
Because that's not in the policy that I guess I was not aware that policy was not when I had voted for, and that was not in the policy book that we have. So I was concerned where that came from, and according to our town council, that is not what we're bound by. We're bound by the law that says the majority rules, and that was the mistake I was under, that we needed to have the 3 votes.
Well, I'm only going by the policy that I had received. So, again, we can ratify the term. The term will begin on the 10th day of December and expire on April the 24th, 2015.
Okay, so the motion is to approve the appointment of Andrew
No,
Putnam.
to ratify the term. The appointment has been made.
Okay, so my motion is to ratify the term for Mr. Putnam commencing the 10th day of December 2012, ending April 24th, 2015.
That's correct.
Okay.
Do I have a second? I'll second it. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you. Next up this evening, we have individual selectmen reports. And let's originally go with the town manager's report. How's that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The board may have seen the governor's announcement this past Tuesday that he is implementing 9 seat cuts in state executive branch spending. Further, he is asking the legislature to authorize him to reduce local aid to municipalities. This is due to an unanticipated drop in state revenues over the past 4 months. Obviously, any cuts in local aid within an existing budget year, and ours, of course, is nearly half completed, would present significant spending reduction challenges to the town and the school department as well. We are so indicating to our legislators, and we'll certainly stay tuned on this issue. Also, members of the board, we've begun our routine FY14 budget meetings with department heads. This process will continue into this week. As the board is aware, the charter specifies that I deliver the proposed FY14 budget, operating budget to the Board of Selectmen no later than January 1st, and more to come on that. As an early reminder, members of the board, we anticipate having the long-awaited information from the town's consultant on water treatment options, hopefully in time to transmit to the board for your final meeting in December, which would be, which of course is next Monday, the 17th. As you will recall, there is a timeliness issue on these water treatment options, driven by additional regulations from the DEP, that's the Department of Environmental Protection, of course, which apply to surface water sources like Falmouth. I'm working with Public Works Director Ray Jack and making every effort to have this information to the board prior to your December 17th meeting, so discussion regarding that and significant decisions to be forthcoming can be made early in the coming years. So the point again is to have this information to the board so you can have some time to review and deliberate on those important decisions that will be made early in calendar year 2013. Also, members of the board, I have been advised by the Finance Committee that 2 vacancies currently exist on that important body, and that they request that the Board of Selectmen consider advertising these vacancies for filling as appropriate. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
I move that we fill the we advertise the vacancies on the Finance Committee.
We also have 3 that vacated all in 1 week from Concom as well, right? We have to
in a
look
period of
into
time. I think it has been advertised.
Okay.
We'll follow up.
All right.
But I don't think we need a motion. I think we just need to make sure that we tell them. Individual selectmen reports.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I just want to report that the Capital Advisory Committee has had 2 meetings now under the leadership of Chairman Selectman Putnam. We're making some good progress. We have each been tasked with coming up with 10 to 15 ideas of how to raise or save somewhere between $2.5 to $3.5 million. And we are on our timetable of giving a presentation to the board prior to the April town meeting.
Okay. We have been looking for a form. It's approaching it's past the 1-year anniversary of Mr. Suso. So I believe we'll be circulating a review form. Whether or not the board likes the new form or not, be up to you. I haven't seen a form. I know that years ago we looked to change a form, and I don't know whether it had changed, but I've been looking in the office, and it appeared we're still with the same old form. So we're going to circulate one to the board, take a look at it, whether you like it or not, and if you do, we'll be able to move forward with that. And then we'll develop some, maybe a little mini retreat to develop some goals for Mr. Suso moving forward. Okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Anything else from the board? Again, next week, next Monday is the last meeting before the holiday. Again, falls on Tuesday, Monday night, and then New Year's Eve falls on a Monday night as well. We may need to have some kind of budget workshop meeting, in other words, to approve the budget that first week in January, maybe some late afternoon or something of that nature. But if folks out there need some license information, need to get a license done, they need to make sure they do so by next week, because the board is not going to be meeting until after New Year's, so they need to move that forward.
And our meeting may go a little later elsewhere next Monday night?
Yes, the board, we have in the past, and I'd like to keep the tradition going that maybe we'd adjourn afterwards and not discuss business, but talk about David's recovery and
hear about Brent's vacation.
And the pictures of the luxury blocks. Next Monday at the quarter.
The suite.
The suite. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, thank you.
Took the picture for
Hi, I'm Margaret Gifford.
And I'm Pat Thatcher. We're members of the team at Sotheby's International Realty in Falmouth. And Falmouth has been so busy with real estate.
Yes, it has. I've been so busy I haven't had time to color my hair.
Margaret, that's way too busy.
I know.
Still, it's a great time for buyers because interest rates remain at historic lows.
And it's a great time for sellers because the inventory is so low.
So that's increasing demand.
Yes, it is.
Don't you love Falmouth?
Remember, WC Communications is your printing team. We are calm and cool under pressure. You can call us at 508-563-7366 or toll free at 1-800-696-7303.